It's the Schude Talk Show. Yeah. Okay, so I am overjoyed to be talking to the two of you again, Jessica and Joyce with Winged Hope. Oh my goodness. I was trying to think about when we last spoke, on the podcast,
Yeah.
on the show, and it was November 2022.
Oh, wow.
So I know, right? It seems like not that long ago, but then it kind of was a long time
Yeah.
ago. And we were talking about all things Winged Hope and everything. And so I kind of wanted just to go back because things have changed for you guys in your trajectory. But I thought it'd be kind of fun to talk about everything that you guys have accomplished through the organization. My gosh, but over 65,000 families helped through what you guys started 13 years ago.
That's it.
And oh my goodness. So, how's it going?
Yeah, it's great. We served or trained over 65,000 people, and then with direct victim services, we served over 10,000 people from over 5,000 families. So, yeah, we're tired still. I think we're still trying to catch up, and it was the honor of a lifetime, but I'm so happy to be in a new season.
New season. Because, so maybe people that don't know, Winged Hope officially closed its doors, would you say? January is kind of the
2013,
official.
yeah.
2026.
That's right. Sorry.
Okay. Well, you were in 2013, which was 13 years ago.
When we started, yeah.
Yeah, oh my goodness.
Yeah.
So do you think, one thing I always think about with you guys too is totally volunteer. That's another thing. But I don't know, do you ever think about there was a model where maybe you got paid?
Not us, but we did think about bringing on other people and paying them. So when I had this idea for Winged Hope, it was solely to serve, and I didn't really think through the fact that it's a business and that there would be business tasks and roles and duties. And so we did have thoughts multiple times about paying someone to come and handle the business end of things, but everyone loved the idea that we were all volunteers so much, and we were so proud to say that. And also, it was comforting for people to know that literally every time they gave
for
back
sure.
to serving. So we talked about it a couple of times, but we always came back to, no, this should be the model.
Well, and I know I look at organizations too, and honestly, that's the first thing I look at. It's like how much money actually goes, because probably be surprised at you say nonprofit, and I think people might assume like, oh my gosh, most of it's going, or a lot of is going to help the cause, but not necessarily.
And we were so blessed because with our volunteers, so many of them came to us that were qualified to be able to sit in the treasury role.
Oh, sure.
And administrative and do things that allowed us to really serve the victims. So lots of blessings with the right people coming.
You had business people coming for sure that
Yes.
had that experience, and then just had a huge heart for what you guys were doing. And so for people that don't know, like what types of, you said 65,000 for training and helping, and then 10,000 for direct services. What was your client base really?
It was really anybody who had suffered violence and trauma. And so very often we got our cases directly from the police department. So a crime would occur, and we just filled in the gaps, really. We served as victim advocates for them and walked through the process with them, going to court with them sometimes, helping them fill out orders of protection. And then also doing the light and fluffy things, making sure that children had what they needed to get through the process, but also had things they needed that brought them joy. One story that I think of was a family where there was child sexual abuse, and it was the brother's best friend who sexually assaulted his very young siblings. And that boy had some trauma too, and I think a lot of other big organizations that took a lot of government funding couldn't do things like we did. So we ended up helping that boy, the sibling of the ones who were sexually abused, because the trauma he was suffering from walking through that and the guilt he was feeling, which of course it wasn't his fault, but this was his best friend he brought
Oh,
into
they
his
brought
home.
into the home and
Yes.
And yeah, and so we were able to do light and fluffy things like he loved Corbin Carroll, and so we got him a Corbin Carroll signed picture, and we were able to get him things when the World Series came here, and so
Oh, wow.
we were able to. We really wanted to do things like that too. So obviously, the services they needed, but also things that would just kind of fill their hearts and souls and bring some joy into these dark times.
Yeah, you don't think about it's the how it affects how far it goes out, right?
yeah.
When it affects so many people.
Yeah.
Well, and that you kind of mentioned something that I thought was really interesting. I think Joyce, you talked about it at the last evening of Hope, of just talking about how you guys have worked so closely with law enforcement.
Yes.
It's really a joint effort. Because I think in situations, and that maybe I'm on social media too much, it becomes a us against them, and nonprofits. Don't want to work with the government or, law enforcement, or because they want to be on a certain side almost. It's weird, but have you guys experienced that or?
Yeah, I mean, their role many times is a justice part, and our role was the healing part. And so we could walk with them to do whatever they needed to process. It definitely helped the prosecution rates go up. I mean, there's evidence of that, of having them healing and being able to come and testify. We spent money flying witnesses here and there to testify, leave the state and be safe, but come back and testify. So, yeah, we were really able to do a lot of things that they just cannot do.
For sure. And it's
Yeah.
nice that they have the support because
Yes.
for you, and I know you guys would take those middle of the night calls, right? And go where you needed to be to support
Yes.
these people who are going through so much trauma.
Yeah.
Yeah. And before Gilbert had hired victim advocates, we essentially were their victim advocates. And so then now they do have paid victim advocates, which is great, but it's not enough. And not enough funding goes into that. And so again, we were filling the gaps for them. We walked with them, held their hands through the process, and they, let them know. Neither of them were actually from Gilbert that came. And so letting them know all the resources and all the
Oh, of the victim
places,
advocate,
yeah,
or
yeah.
the new
ones, right.
that are being trained. So you helped a lot in training.
Yeah, and making sure. And I think too, yeah, unfortunately, so much gets said on social media about policing, and people really, truly don't understand the process, and people want to blame someone. That's just how it goes, especially if there's death. And so they seem like an easy target to blame. And what people don't understand is the police can only do what the law allows them to do. And so if people are truly frustrated, what I've always encouraged is change the laws.
Yeah.
Because we can do that as citizens. And so if you're frustrated by something, again, police have to take this non-partial view, and they have to walk in and try to solve the case. They need evidence. I mean, people are so quick to just be like, why didn't they do that? It's funny. I always say this in my house because we're obviously very pro-police, because I've known some of the finest humans who are police and who walk with these families in the worst moments, sacrifice and carry more than you can even imagine, and everyone's hating on them. And I always think, it's funny how everyone thinks they're experts on policing. Like, I would never go, we were just talking about construction before we got on air. I would never walk in and be like, why didn't you install the toilet that way? Right? Like, I don't know anything about toilets. Most of these people don't know anything about policing, but everyone thinks they're an expert.
Absolutely.
And there's so many facets and pieces to it that the general public doesn't understand. And so for anyone that's frustrated about police and frustrated about some, I always say, like, well, the police that I worked with in the departments that we worked with were some of the finest souls you'll ever meet in your life. Ever.
Absolutely.
Well, and you have that relationship where most people, it's like the keyboard warriors, right? Or
Yes.
something.
Right.
They just want to
Yes.
just want some to feel important.
Right.
I think important
Yeah.
and know
Right.
it all. Like you said, everyone's an expert in absolutely nothing. But
Right.
but they probably don't have those relationships
No.
with the police department like you.
Right.
They don't have those experiences.
And
So
they
they're
feel
just-
like they're contributing. I think everybody wants to think that they're doing something, and typing ugly things about anybody isn't helping anybody. And it's hard to volunteer, and it's hard to sacrifice. I mean, we sacrificed 13 years. It's been 30 for me this year in the world of child abuse volunteering. And that takes a ton of sacrifice. Everyone wants to volunteer or do something on a Saturday when they have the day off anyway, and it's something they want to do, and they get a free T-shirt for it. And that's just not how we worked. And it was exhausting because we did sacrifice constantly.
Well, and it's the time for sure, but emotionally,
Oh, yeah.
I can't even. I just don't think people. I don't think people realize how emotional for sure, or how much it affects so many people. Probably you were probably walking by people, and they're probably have, whether they were a victim themselves, a survivor, or know somebody that was. I think it's just. I think it's rampant. I think, and you could speak
You're
to
right.
Yeah, that's just what
Yes.
I think.
Yes. Yeah.
No, you're absolutely right. It is rampant. And I think that's the other thing that happened too is once people knew what we did, and even still, and I'm sure it's the same for Joyce, I still get calls, I still get texts, and unfortunately, crime's never going to stop. And so things keep happening, and we keep walking with people through it. So yeah, but you're right. It is everywhere. And what I wish we did more, and that's why I'm so thankful you had us back on, is that we would talk about it
Yeah.
because
Right.
it's happening, but so many people carry and hold this shame for forever and don't actually speak it out loud. And I don't know if we shared last time how Joyce and I met and when we met, and that she disclosed something that had happened to her over 60 years prior.
Yeah, well, and
And
I was gonna ask you if you want to kind of talk a little bit about how you even got in this space.
yeah.
So I was volunteering with the Gilbert Police Department, and we were at an event, and Winged Hope had a booth right next door. And I saw this woman come up and talk to Jessica, and before I knew it, the woman was disclosing to her right there in the middle of this car show. And I was like, wow, I need to meet this woman, right? And
Wait, disclosing what had happened to
to her,
Okay.
to Jessica. And so we started talking, and I was like, I want to do that. I want to do more. And so I had already gone through the victim advocacy training with volunteering with the police department, with the prosecutor's office. So it was, and with my past, it just seemed like a full circle for me to be able to help others who were also survivors. So, yeah.
Well, and it's definitely like a God moment, right? Like
Absolutely.
he put you guys together
He put
for
us
a
together.
reason. Oh my
Our
gosh.
our backgrounds are so similar.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. What a gift.
And I think that makes me want to speak to something I don't think we did talk about that you were discussing. We're both survivors of lots of things. We talk about the Adverse Childhood Experiences Study, and we're both very highly scored on there. And
What is that?
it's a study that was done in 1997 is when it started. It was the CDC and Kaiser Permanente, and it started as an obesity study. These doctors were trying to study why people were obese. And the doctors started noticing that every other person was disclosing some kind of childhood trauma. So they did a whole new study on childhood trauma. And what they found was there was such a great correlation between how much childhood trauma you had versus how many actual physical ailments you had later in your body. So the higher your score on this 10-question test, it's all about adverse things that happened to you before the age of 18, the greater your likelihood for physical ailments. Like Dr. Folletti, one of the doctors who founded it, often talked about this woman who came in and she had 5 different kinds of cancer in her body at
Oh
the
my
same
gosh.
time. And she was a 10 out of 10 on the ACEs study. So she had had all the trauma you can imagine. And so for us, having this trauma and walking into this space and then helping people, it definitely helped. And I feel like it made them feel more comfortable, the victims, because we could truly relate. But it also made it so heavy for us. There wasn't a case or a family that didn't have some element of our stories. So it was triggering, but also, I believe, healing. Having done it for so many years, I think hearing it and walking through it, and it made purpose in our
Absolutely.
pain. There was a purpose in it because we were able to help so many people by drawing on our strength from what we walked through. And so definitely for me, I feel that's God. And I feel like God had us live all these experiences. Like there isn't one experience that we lived that I don't feel like we saw purpose for in our work in Winged Hope. So that was amazing. And what a gift that most people don't get to have.
Right, because it could define you, right? Everything that you both went through could define you, and then you could be not, you could just, you hear about different experiences and people that go through trauma, and sometimes they don't make it out,
Right.
right?
yeah.
They don't find purpose in
Absolutely.
that and everything, but you guys clearly had.
Yeah.
You clearly have.
In the ACEs study, there's one that talks about if you have 0 ACEs. So you had a beautiful, perfect childhood, like my husband.
Wait, so is that possible?
I mean, close,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
like
yeah.
not perfect,
Mine,
but like
mine too.
yeah,
Yeah.
but no vast trauma. Your odds of doing IV drugs are like 1 in 33 if you're just a normal person. If you go to the other side and you have someone that has between a 4 and a 10 on the ACEs study, so they've had a lot of childhood trauma, their odds are 1 in 480, the perfect childhood people.
Oh, okay. I was like 1 in 33.
I'm sorry, no.
That's not so good.
That's the people that have,
Oh, yeah.
I reversed them, yeah. So if you've had a wonderful childhood, your odds are 1 in 480. But if you've had definitely as high as we have, your odds are 1 in 33 that you're going to be an IV drug user. So Joyce and I absolutely should be IV drug users. We should have all kinds of problems. Yeah. So, I mean, I feel like every day when I do ACEs training, and I still do those around the state, I'm so thankful to God that we are where we are because we shouldn't be. We should have all the problems, and praise God we don't, because he saw us in a different purpose, and he decided to use our past and our pain to help others.
Have you each taken the test?
Yeah. So my memoirs are actually called All My Friends Are Zeros, which is based on the ACEs study, and I do train all around the state. So yeah, I'm a 9 out of 10.
Wow.
The only reason I'm not a 10 is even though the police came to our house all the time, my daddy actually never went to prison. Had he gone to prison, I would be a 10.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
What about you, Joyce?
I think I'm about an 8. There was never any police because everything was undercover. But yeah,
And she lived in a smaller town.
very small
Yeah.
town.
So it's based on, so it has like like bullet points almost?
Yes.
Like,
Yeah.
oh,
So
okay.
like, were you sexually abused?
Oh, gotcha.
Did your dad hit your mom? Did somebody have mental illness or suicidal ideations? Things like that. So it's all these different factors that
Oh,
will give you
gotcha.
trauma, and then you mark them every time you have one.
Oh, gotcha. You check them off
Yeah.
the list.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. So, so you said you do that training still?
Yeah.
And then, so once they take the test, then you kind of direct them towards services, or?
I usually encourage them not to take the test while I'm training because
Okay.
to take the test, if you've had trauma, which most people have, then your brain's done listening, right? Because then you've gone back to your trauma, you're reprocessing it, you're thinking about why you marked that. So I usually try not to even hand out the test until way later in the training and ask them not to take it, because then they can't listen to all the healing that needs to happen.
Right.
But eventually they always do by the end of the training. And it shakes some people. But what I try to say is that I would love for them to look at it not as, oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm a 9 out of 10, but oh my gosh, I'm a 9 out of 10.
And look at me.
And I'm not doing these things. And
Right.
I don't have all these statistics that I should. If you have between a 6 and a 10, they suggest that your life expectancy could decrease by 20 years if you don't address your trauma. And so that's part of why I do it, helping people understand that they have to address it. So if they, whatever their score is on it, addressing the trauma, talking about it, healing from it is absolutely necessary. And I think we've all met people who don't, and they shove it down, and they think that feels easier and better, but it'll find you. Again, like that woman with 5 kinds of cancer, it will, if it doesn't affect you mentally, it will affect you physically, and you'll have physical ailments. Most of us have eczema, most of us have asthma, like inflammatory diseases, because our cortisol levels are so high all the time that we're inflamed inside. Sinus problems. So for those people listening, if they have all those things, they might want to go online and take the test and start addressing some of their childhood trauma.
But it's one of those things when you say that, I'm like, oh my gosh, well, I am a little stuffy today. It's like, when you read something online or whatnot, oh wait, what happened? I'll have to,
It's chronic. Like you'd have chronic sinus infections and chronic
got you.
asthma. And
Not just a little
Not just
bout here and
a
there.
rash
Like, oh my
once,
gosh.
yeah.
A rash once or
Yeah,
twice.
yeah.
You're like,
You
oh,
actually
okay.
have eczema, yeah.
I'm like, what am I forgetting? What happened in my childhood? I need to dig
Yeah.
deeper.
Yeah.
Well, one thing that you were talking about too is kind of how you guys got started with is how you met, but you both, like you said, had like major childhood trauma. And I think, do you ever think about that? It's embarrassing, like we were saying, and just how you said like your goal is to like talk about it,
Yes.
right? Because I think people do put it. I don't know. I think when something's happening to me, I don't always like to talk about it. I mean,
Right.
nothing on that level, but I don't like to feel like a victim, or I don't like to feel vulnerable. That's the word.
Sure.
And I think you have to be super vulnerable to share, like you said, when that person was
Absolutely.
talking to Jess and sharing, like that's huge, and that shows such a strength. And I think the more that you do get out there and talk about it, the more that people will be like, okay, wait. I mean, it reminds me of like depression and anxiety when no one would talk about that, right?
Right.
Because that was super embarrassing. And now, I mean, it's probably the other way. You're like, and now it's everyone's anxious.
Yeah, yeah. Everyone thinks that.
But I remember a time like when that was something that I really struggled with having anxiety, and I didn't want to talk to anyone because there must be something. I didn't want someone to look at me like, oh gosh, what's her deal? Like there's something wrong with her. So that was a huge thing of like growing up and just like dealing with kind of like that depression or anxiety and everything like that. So I was super thankful that I feel like we talk about that more.
Oh, yeah.
But I think as far as domestic violence, I don't think we do really talk about it as much, or people don't want to hear about it. They don't want to hear about terrible things that are actually going on. But that's just kind of my opinion.
I think that's why, I mean, Jess and I both get people just come and disclose, right? And I think it's because we accept that. We are not judgmental and we're survivors and the thing with Jess, when that woman disclosed to her, what Jess said to her was, I'm a survivor myself. And once they hear that and see us and know that there's not going to be any judgment,
Yeah.
and that's what we want. We want people to keep sharing. If you meet someone, to feel comfortable sharing that, right? Because then that starts their healing process.
And that's what
Right.
I always say too. You can just say it that blanket statement of I'm a survivor. You don't have to tell them all your secrets.
Right.
You don't have to say everything, but
Right.
and you're right in regards to mental health and suicide. So when my daddy killed himself, who was my abuser, no one talked about it. And there were literally about 3 books that I could draw on. And now there's so many, and now everyone talks about it. And I'm so thankful because I had gone almost 10 years without meeting another person who had survived a suicide loss. And then 10 years later, I was in a job and I had a coworker who lost her son to suicide. And that was the first time I had met somebody because people just did not talk about it. And yeah, we really, again, you don't have to share everything, but if you can tell someone struggling, or if you hear someone say that something's, let them talk and let it be about them, but also let them know you're a survivor too. And so that you might have experiences and you might be able to help walk through them with this. You don't have to have a nonprofit or help
Right.
65,000 people. You just have to be kind and be willing to be vulnerable and help other people. And I think that's the difference. We went to, not to bag on the Japanese, but we went to Japan and everybody was so polite. And my son's like, you'll love it. They're so polite. But they were so zoned in on their own space. Like it was impolite to like look at other people, and you don't like wave hi, and you're just kind of staying in Tokyo anyway, and stay in your lane and you don't look. And I feel like we have a tendency as Americans, or everybody, to do that when it comes to trauma. Like, oh, I don't want to look. Or the number of times that we would have a terrible case and people would literally cover their ears and be like, oh, I can't hear about that. And I would always say, like, if you have trouble hearing it, imagine how this child felt living it. Like, we have to be able to hear hard things, to be able to process them, to be able to help people walk through them. And I want for us to normalize talking about really hard things like child sexual abuse. I got invited to submit to do a TED Talk. I can't remember who it was, but I had said that's what I wanted to talk about. And they were like, oh, no, we don't want to talk about that. I said, I want to talk about normalizing talking about child sexual abuse, because that is what leads to so many other things. That's what leads to drug addiction. That's what leads to suicide. That's what leads to all these other problems. That's what leads to divorce. And because people aren't addressing their child sexual trauma. And I said, I wanted to do a talk about normalizing that. And she was like, no. So I never did one. And that's exactly my whole point.
That is,
Is that everyone's like, oh, we don't want to talk about that. And my husband would say that too. Like, he would be talking with his coworkers and would just, vaguely talk about a case we had, and they can't hear it. They just can't hear it. So I need that to change. I need, because otherwise we can't, nobody will feel comfortable. Like you were saying, talk about anxiety. What if still, when everyone talked about anxiety, they were like, oh, we can't talk about that. You wouldn't talk about it. But now that we're open talking about it, people can. I want that to happen with child sexual abuse because the number of people that have been sexually abused as children that are not talking about it, are never talking about it, is ridiculous. Do you know the average age that someone who's been abused as a child discloses? 52.
Wow.
That's a long time to hold on to it.
Oh,
And
that
how
just gave me chills.
Yeah.
Like, oh my gosh.
how can we expect our children, if something happens to them, how can we expect them to feel comfortable about it if we're not comfortable talking about it? So it has to be a topic that is just open and available. It's not their fault. There shouldn't be any shame. And we just need to keep talking about that.
Well,
And we
then
will.
you hear about the cycle repeating, right? And I don't know the
Absolutely.
stats on that, but if
Yeah.
someone who is a child that's sexually abused and then repeating that behavior because that's what
Absolutely.
that's what they know, right? That's
That stat's a little smaller than people think it is, but it definitely does happen, and other behaviors happen. They
More
say
so.
about 2/3 of people in inpatient drug rehab are survivors of child abuse. So that happens way more often.
But the amount of kids that are actually sexual, well, and it's only, how do you know for sure, right? It's only what's reported too, I would think.
Exactly.
And that and also then we go back to why everyone's always mad at the police and the justice system. That the number of times that then it gets prosecuted is so much smaller because I don't know if I talked about this last time, but in an investigation, again, there's so many steps and people don't understand. And you'll see something terrible on the news and be like, they should be in jail forever.
Yeah.
And that's just not how it works. So if there's a case and the crime has happened, you call the police and a patrol officer will come, and you have to hope it's a good patrol officer who knows what they're doing, and then that hopefully they'll think there's enough to submit that to a detective, and then that detective has to think there's enough to actually start an investigation, and then that's months long, maybe a year long, gathering all that information. Then that detective has to submit that to the county attorney's office, and they have to think there's enough to go forward with it. And then if they do, then it goes to court, and then you have to hope that in court that people think that this person's guilty, and they'll have hired a very expensive swanky lawyer to prove that they're not. So the number of cases that actually get prosecuted where these perpetrators actually get charged and convicted is way smaller than it needs to be. And part of that is the law. A lot of the laws are written just in case someone's innocent. And I'm telling you that if somebody's gotten that far through all those steps and they've been convicted, they're guilty.
Right.
And so, but predators know that. They know how hard it is to get these cases to go through. They know how hard it is to have evidence, and they're smart about it. And they're almost always a really great guy. This guy who's so helpful and he's so nice, and he helps me bring in my groceries. And like single moms are one of the biggest targets because they need help and they're struggling. And so these predators will find them. Child sexual predators love church because they feel like they'll get forgiven there. They have a vast array of people to choose from with victims, and sometimes in some churches they do get forgiven. I'm so proud of the churches that don't do that, because scripturally, if you read it, and I'll give you all the scriptures, Jesus doesn't like them to do that either, and so I'm so grateful we were able to write child protection policies for lots of churches who do care about it and who are trying, because the churches that turn a blind eye and try to pretend it doesn't happen. There's a great book called On Guard, and it was written about how often child sexual predators seek out churches to find their victims. They're easy targets.
Well, and I can think of a couple off the top of my head where people have been through that, but
Yeah.
at church, you
Yeah.
know, and it's a place that your guard is down, I think.
That's right.
You go there for safety
That's
as,
right.
you know, as a person or a single, you know, to meet
That's right.
people and you think that it's safe and
Right.
there's only, you know, God-loving people there and
That's not true.
No.
And they'll always groom the parents first, these child sexual predators. So they're going to become friends with you as parents first to make sure you gain their trust. 80% of the time, child sexual predators are also married in a heterosexual relationship with children. So
How would you know?
Yeah, it's your dad's friend. It's, you know, it's your uncle. It's that guy.
Is that what you guys have seen the most of with all of your work, was more child sexual abuse trauma, or would it be like domestic violence? I'm thinking of like a husband or wife, or is it, what are the, kind of the different cases you've dealt with?
So we kind of divided it up where I handled the domestic violence and Jess handled the child abuse and the
Okay, I didn't know
suicide
that.
cases. So that was good for us to have. I mean, Jess, that's passion for hers, her suicide and domestic violence is my experience and my passion to heal and have women be able to not stay in the victim role, right, and to be successful. And so, yeah, I don't know how many, 6,000, how many domestic violence victims I worked with. I have no idea, but yeah, that's the majority. And getting back to the justice part, that was part of the healing that is so difficult because you do try to encourage them and you walk with them to report, and then it doesn't happen, and they're like, it happened again, right? And so the healing part.
Because if they don't report, if they don't report it, no one knows. But then they have to want to prosecute, right? Or
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And so the healing part, we really tried to focus on not the justice part, but the healing part, right?
Because we can't control that.
Yeah, can't control that, but you can control your healing.
Yeah.
That's such a good.
Yeah.
I didn't really think about it that way because
Yeah.
there's so many moving parts in the and so many
yeah.
different people.
And it's
much.
so frustrating. I mean, we will have
Yeah.
a case that looks like, oh, this is definitely going to go through. They have everything. Sometimes they'll have a confession even, and it doesn't happen. So, because again, per the law, there has to be tangible evidence. And if there's not, then a wealthy attorney will
Yeah, for sure.
get them out of it.
Yeah.
Well, and that's I was thinking about one thing. Learned a lot from you guys over the years, but one thing that with the domestic violence piece of it, it's one thing that I don't know. I think what you were saying with like the the child sexual abusers or what I picture like some big scary monster looking person. Like you think you should like point them out. I walk down the street and like, okay, well they're child sexual abuse. Like you could just see it all over their face, right? And the same thing with like I feel like with the domestic violence, like we were talking about, like these aren't people who are like on the streets and they're like homeless and they're just mad and so they're fighting with their spouse or whatever. It's that they're high society. Is
yeah.
that a word? But like
It's your dentist.
Yeah.
It's your
Yes.
basketball coach. It's everybody. Like there isn't a career path we haven't seen in all of our cases.
No social economic
No one is
guideline.
immune.
No.
No one is immune.
Because then I think about one question is if someone's searching for their significant other, is there warning signs? I don't know. It's where you're like
for
one
sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
For sure. Joyce, you can talk about DV first.
If they try to isolate you from your family or other friends, that's normally the start because they don't want you to be able to talk with anyone else. They want to control what you do. They want to control your finances. Oh, come live with me. I'll help pay your rent. You don't need your family for that. I mean, that's one of the real red flags that you need to look for sure.
Gotcha. And then once you're in the relationship or living together, then probably just control. That's the thing that comes, just
That's
wanting
right.
total
Yeah,
control.
control.
That's right.
And family members don't really understand the dynamics that are going on, and they're like, we walked with you before and you went back. We're not going to do that again.
Oh,
Not
you mean like
understanding.
they got out of the relationship?
Yes,
and
if they
had
get
this-
out, or
okay.
if they get out, but then he contacts them and tries to get back in their lives, it's very difficult for the family, which is why we many times gave books to the family members to try and understand the whole dynamic, because if you're not living it, you really cannot understand it.
And then do you think and do you think about the people that because I feel like they might like pick certain people.
Absolutely.
Sure. Yeah, they look for a certain personality type. Like,
Yep.
I don't know. Did you witness that too?
Oh, for sure. So being a victim myself, several times of domestic violence, I was a single mom and I was struggling. I mean, I was working, but I was really struggling. And and I was trying to escape an abuser. And here comes a guy who's like, I can take care of I can help all that. And it was wonderful for a while until I got pregnant. And many times domestic violence starts when you're pregnant because you no longer are there, you're now going to be caring for someone else other than them. Your attention is split.
They're jealous.
Yeah.
Crazy. And that,
Yeah.
so, and maybe you could talk about this, but this is a term I see always posted. I think it might be overused, but a narcissist. So what would your example of like a narcissist be?
Someone who's just very self-centered. Everything has got to be about them. You can't share your feelings because then they turn it that like you're not allowed to have feelings. Oh, what are you telling me? You're blaming me. You're not. It's
They lack
definitely just a
empathy.
lack of empathy. Yeah, no, no caring, no ability to care really.
When we had domestic violence cases come in, it sounds crazy, but we would very often go through. We had a little tip card that had 10 signs you're in an abusive relationship. Only one of those was physical abuse.
Yes.
And so often these cases would come straight from the police department. So sometimes he literally has just shoved her head through a wall. And she's like, oh no, he doesn't abuse me. So it's the words you use too.
Right.
They're not ready to hear that word. And so we'd go through the 10 signs and it was fascinating because you'd start and they'd be like, no, he doesn't do that. No, he doesn't do that. And then we get to like number 4 and they'd be like, well, sometimes. And then they were answering that he actually did do 1, 2, and 3. And so we
Interesting.
never had anybody who left our office that didn't have an 8 or higher. And I think that's important too, that it's not, it almost never starts physical. It
Right.
starts with all the other ones. And I think of a case that came to us and her husband had never laid a hand on her, not once, but he had every other sign of domestic violence. And when she left him, they don't like that. So like, and that's the other thing. Like you always hear like get a restraining order, which we call orders of protection here in Arizona. Sometimes when you get an order of protection, that enrages them so much that then they become even more violent. And that's what happened to this guy. And he ended up killing her son. He had never laid a hand on her, but he had every other sign of domestic violence. And he killed her boy when she left because then he wasn't in control anymore. So it definitely needs to be taken seriously. And also that's the piece that I focused on a lot because that's what I was the child who witnessed domestic violence. We focused a lot on the children who witnessed domestic violence and trying to make sure the cycle didn't continue, making sure that those children got therapy that were witnessing it. Do you want to tell that closet story?
So we had a mom who came to us through the police department and needed a place to stay. And we found a wonderful person who had a small home in Chandler and said that they would let this mom come and live there for very, very, very low rent. So we are going through the home for her to see it, and the daughter runs into the bedroom and comes out, Mom, you gotta come and see this closet. So we go in the bedroom and there's this closet and she's like, look, it's big enough for you to hide in. That child is actually the one who recorded the beating and played it in court for the judge to hear. And
How old is she?
she was about 8 at the time.
God, breaks your heart.
It just was that, I'll never forget that court hearing. There, you could hear a pin drop when that child stepped up and said, I recorded this. The judge was like, we don't need to hear this, we're done. And he contested that. I mean, he fought that all the way. And that's the woman who now owns her own business. She's healed and owns her own business and cares for the elderly. And so we were able to heal that whole family.
The healing is so important.
Oh, it's
my
so
goodness.
important.
And more, like you said, more important than the justice
Yes.
of it, right?
And the only part we can control.
Right.
Right.
Because we can't control the other piece.
You can't
So,
control the outcome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be here today without that healing. I mean, it took years of counseling, but I wouldn't be able to help others. So counseling to me is just, I really encourage everyone, if they hear this and they're struggling, to definitely reach out and get help.
Is there, because I know it can be expensive, is there services for counseling or that people can find or?
There's a couple foundations that we found now that, one is the Hope Foundation, does offer free counseling. There are counselors that take Access, so if they're on Access, that absolutely. There are wonderful ones that we know that take insurance, so, yeah.
But be careful
Yeah.
because I think bad therapy can do more damage. So
Yes.
making sure you really find someone that's right.
You bring up, did you read that book?
Which one?
Oh man, it's called Bad Therapy.
Oh, no, I didn't.
No.
Oh, I should look it up. No, literally,
funny.
there's a book. Oh my gosh, I want to like look it up. I need Mike to look it up, but
That's
so I have to look it up right now because it was on. So this author was on Joe Rogan.
okay.
But it was, oh my gosh.
While you're looking it up, I'm going to say something that I think is important. Lots of
There it
people,
is.
when domestic violence happens, think that it's not their business. They don't want to get involved. It's not their problem. And I think this statistic should help people reconsider. The single greatest predictor of juvenile delinquency and adult criminality is witnessing domestic violence. So the children who are watching this behavior happen their entire childhoods have the greatest chances of being juvenile delinquents and adult criminals in our society. So I hear that so often. It's not my business. It's not my place. That's the relationship. Oh, it is your business, and your whole community is going to change if we have all these children witnessing that.
It's also, important for moms who say, I don't want to take their dad away from him. He's not mean to them, right? I don't want to do that to my children. Not understanding what it's doing to the children by witnessing it.
That's one of our favorite, speaking of books, and then we'll talk about your book.
No.
There's one called When Dad Hurts Mom. That's my favorite book. We used to give that all the time by Lundy Bancroft. And it talks about the lifelong damage witnessing domestic violence does to children. Because so many mamas think they're staying for the babies, and really they're doing lifelong damage by staying.
Yeah.
So I love that book.
Yeah, I have heard, I mean, you hear that all the time. Like,
Yeah.
well,
Right.
I'll
Yeah.
wait till the kids, I'll
Yeah.
wait till the kids
No.
are out of the house because they need
Right.
both parents.
Yes.
Yeah. And of course, in the perfect world, yes, but not when dad's being abusive.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you ever come across the opposite? Just curious where the
We had
mom-
3. I can think of 3.
three where
over
the mom
13
was
years.
being abusive to the
Yeah.
Okay.
I can think of 3.
Interesting.
And I think there's probably more. They just don't come forward. They come forward even less often than the women,
for sure.
right?
Yeah, that would make sense.
Yeah, but not nearly as often, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's called I think it's called Abigail Schreier is the one, and it's really interesting, but she kind of talks about we're over therapized. Is that a word? I don't know if
Yeah.
that's a word. I just made it up.
Yeah,
but
yeah, it's a
too
good
much
word. It
therapy.
works.
But yeah, just talking about and how it's kind of the opposite. Just talking about how anything goes wrong, well,
Yeah.
then it's straight to therapy, and then it just made me think of it when you said bad therapy
Yeah.
because suddenly the therapist was giving them ailments, right, or
Yeah.
things, or
Well, so that's a real thing. If and that's part of why we paid for therapy for so long, and we paid for really expensive therapy because it's just a thing with insurance. So if the therapists take insurance, they have to diagnose you with something. And these babies already, especially the babies with sexual abuse, have so much going on already. They don't need a diagnosis on top of it.
like a
and-
mental diagnosis,
Yeah,
almost like
yeah, they have to
okay.
be able to submit that to insurance.
Interesting.
Yeah, so that's why everybody except one of our groups did not take insurance, which made it way more expensive. But sometimes, especially with the really small children, they needed 5 or 6 sessions, and they were good. They had a good life and just had one terrible incident. If they've had lifelong trauma, obviously it's going to take longer. But
right.
yeah, I think there's some truth to that. And a good therapist, it won't last forever and ever and ever, right?
Yeah.
You can just kind of come in and do checkups here and there. But yeah, if they're doing it well and properly and giving you tools to help you heal yourself, then you shouldn't go every Wednesday for the rest of your life. I mean, if you want to and they make you feel better, but
Right.
like you shouldn't need it.
Right. Yeah, it was interesting. So speaking about trauma, it's one thing that she's written a few books, and he had her on, Joe Rogan had her on her, and he said, well, I have trauma, or he said a traumatic experience. And he said he was going back to visit his high school, and his like heart started, like he started feeling sweaty, his palms were sweaty, his heart started beating. At the thought of, because he remembered he was bullied. There was a bully at the high school or whatever. And he's like, yeah, that's very traumatic. And she's like, actually, that's not trauma. And he's like, well, he's like, well, what would you call it? And she said, a really bad experience. But it was just because, it's kind of the opposite. Like that, nothing like what
Right.
you guys are talking. She's like, no, that's not trauma. That was just a bad memory. I think she
Right.
said that was a bad memory for you, but that's okay.
Yeah.
But that's not trauma. So it was just interesting. But
And bullying became such a a hot topic, I think, too, and trying to explain what the definition of bullying is, because we did a lot of training on bullying and suicide, because that does happen
Oh,
as
sure.
well.
Yeah, I think this was on a whole different.
Yeah.
He's like, I didn't like that guy. That was
They picked
traumatic.
on him.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
and
yeah.
so the definition, like, it has to be repeated with the intent to harm for it to be bullying. So if they're just being jerks
Yeah, high
and
school
they did it
boys.
once, you
Yeah.
know, then that's not technically bullying. That's just a guy being a jerk.
Right.
So I think understanding again true definitions and understanding all these things we're talking about and going back to the keyboard warriors, that's the kind of stuff like they hear something once or they read something once and then they're experts and they want to talk about it.
For sure. So, one thing, and I don't know if you guys dealt much with this, but I'm curious about it because I think we're like one of the biggest hubs for sex trafficking.
We
I don't
do.
know. Yeah. So you were involved with that
Yeah.
side of it too.
Yeah. We have one of the things that I always think about and talk about when we do sex trafficking, and we had a lot of those cases, is that I wish everyone would rewind. I always say I'm going to write a book called Rewind, where we go back, because just like all the other things I talked about, 100% of the trafficked victims I've met with and walked with and worked with have had some childhood trauma. And so we have to go back and rewind and go back to that first trauma. Had they gotten healing from that child sexual abuse, they would very likely not ever have landed in this spot. And so that's so important. And one of the number one signs of child sexual abuse is running away from home. And so making sure.
Well, it makes sense. Like, who'd want to
Right?
stick around for that?
Right.
Yeah, it's probably
Yeah.
your first instinct to get
That's
the heck
right.
out of there.
That's right. And so understanding that is really important. And again, I think trafficking, I think part of the reason everyone was okay talking with trafficking is very few people know someone who's been trafficked or haven't been trafficked themselves. But we don't want to talk about child sexual abuse, which could stop some of the trafficking because everyone either has been sexually abused or knows someone who's been sexually abused or knows someone who's been attempted. So it's harder for everyone to wrap their brains around and to talk about. So trafficking blew up and everyone's like, we'll talk about this because it doesn't cause them, personal pain. But we have to rewind and talk about the
What
childhood
led-
trauma that's leading to that. And yeah, trafficking cases are so difficult because they have all the layers. They have the child sexual abuse. They a lot of times have physical abuse. There's no trafficker who's not also a domestic violence abuser. So they have DV. So they have every aspect of what we worked with all rolled up into one. Lots of times trafficking, lying becomes a coping mechanism.
Yes.
And so they are hard group to work. So God bless the groups that do. We work with one of them, AATN. They deal with it and they work with it still, and they do an amazing job. It is a hard population to walk with.
And a
Most
lot of-
difficult, most difficult victims to help.
Are they?
Drugs
yeah.
are always very often a part of it. So there's addiction on top of it. And then they can't get into therapy right away because they're still addicted, because you have to be clean. So they can go into drug therapy, but they can't go into their personal therapy. So they're
All
hard
those
group.
coping mechanisms that they've put in place to be able to just get through the days, right? You have to break through all that to.
And I'm wondering, and with all of and I mean, I know this is probably everyone's maybe, I don't know, but talking about it with like the Epstein, and like maybe that's something that has to come out so we actually talk. I mean, it's as horrific as it is it going to maybe bring us together a little? Because you talk about like politics or whatnot, and it's always like one side against another, but can we just all agree how horrific this is and
Yeah,
how this is
Absolutely.
and maybe this is something that, there again with child sex abuse and all of this, and maybe it's something that we start talking about. I mean, maybe.
I would hope. But I
hope
mean,
so,
all
too.
I've seen is that it is getting political again. And
Yeah.
it's like, it's just not about that. And again, I think it's because that's easier. Would you rather sit and talk about your politics and whatever you're crazy about politics wise? Or do you want to talk about a child being raped? Nobody wants to talk about a child being raped, but we absolutely have to, because it's happening right now. While we've been sitting here, so many children have been raped right now. And it's happening all day, every day. And we have got to get people talking about it, because then otherwise they're not getting healed. I talk about a lot of times I had a case, I sat on a foster care review board for 8 years. So once the children had been removed from the home, we were an all volunteer board, and we would sit and hear the case and decide if these parents should have continue to have custody of their children or if their rights should be relinquished to these children. So we had a case, and there was this lady, and she had been raped by her father her entire childhood. She developed a debilitating drug addiction. Fast forward, she has 2 little girls, and she leaves them with her father, who was her lifelong rapist. Guess what happened? He raped her children. So when we're in foster care review and she's sitting this far away from me, and I said, why would you do that? You know what he did to you. Why would you ever leave your babies with him? And she said, listen, it happened to me and I'm fine. They're going to be fine. So if we aren't healing these parents to have eyes to see what's going on and to have resources and tools to keep themselves safe, they can't keep their babies safe. And then sometimes we'll have it where they just literally haven't talked about it at all. And then they don't have the eyes to see, like, this guy's a predator. They don't have eyes to see all the red flags that this really great guy has who's coming because he's being so helpful. And again, like Joyce said, when you're a single mom and you need help and you need money and you need someone to help you mow the grass or do whatever, and then all of a sudden this guy shows up and he's doing all those things.
Yeah.
And so you're shoving down that gut feeling about the way he looks at your girl. You're shoving down that feeling about, something inappropriate. And that's what people really need to be paying attention to. And I mean, you just need to think through it logically. Like, there are the rare exception of guys who want to hang out with children, right? Most guys don't want to hang out with children that aren't their own. So if you have this guy and all he wants to, and take sports out of it, I mean, there are a lot of guys who are coaching teams and doing it too, but just the biggest thing is trust your instincts. Like, if you have that terrible feeling in your tummy, you don't have to pinpoint what that is. Just trust that and keep your children away from him. And tell your babies to do the same. That feeling that you get in your tummy. And I used to tell mine, like, I don't care if it's the principal of your school. I don't care if it's the president of the United States. Like, whoever makes you have that yucky feeling, you have our permission to run away from them and there will be no consequences. Like, always trust that feeling. And I need mamas and dadas to do the same thing. Like, when you get that bad feeling about somebody, don't talk yourself out of it because he's so great and he volunteers at the church and he just did this for us, and because that's what he's counting on, that he's done all these great things and he's this really great guy. So you'll never target him as the bad guy.
Well, and then yes, for sure. My gosh, you just think about think about people that I've heard about, and it's like that's the first thing. Oh man, I would never have guessed. I
That's
would never
right.
have guessed. They were so
Right.
great.
And that's
then
their plan.
yeah, they're good at it. I mean, they're professionals, right?
That's right.
And then, so talking about, I think when we were talking about how people don't want to talk about it or whatnot, and I think some of it is we just want to live in this like rosy world.
That'd be great.
Yeah, it just
But
it
it's not
doesn't.
real.
It's not right.
Yeah.
It's like, and that's just what I'm guessing is that people, especially with all of, and we don't, and you think about what you're saying of these people who are, dentists and doctors. There's no one really is off limits for
That's
being
right.
this. And then I think and then you look at officials and government officials,
That's
and
right.
they are just the same and can do really, really terrible things, which is hard to think about, but I think we have to understand it, and we have to, we can't put up with it. We can't let the government brush it under the rug. We can't let anyone just brush it under the rug because
No.
it's horrifying.
Yes. And I think we have to remember too, and don't get me wrong, I have a husband who I love. I'm raising a son who I love, right? Not all men are bad, but we have to be logical about it. 96% of child sexual abusers are men. So how about just one simple thing? Don't let guys watch your children, right? Like, your babysitter should always be a girl, unless it's your husband, right? But like, be logical about it. Know the stats. Understand what it is. If 96% of them are men, then all right.
Odds are,
Right? Let's have it be a girl. Does that mean sometimes it happens with women? Yes, but not even in the family as often. You hear it on the news because that is news. Because
it's different.
It's different, right? It's not usually that. So just being wise about it. And again, you don't have to be an expert and know all the stats to know your gut feeling and trust your gut feeling. And so I just urge everyone, just trust that feeling, because there have been so many cases where after it happened, they're like, I just knew something was wrong. I just knew so, and then you shove it down because you don't want it to be that. You don't want to believe that that's a real thing.
but I think one thing I always think about was we're taught, especially as like little girls, we're taught to be respectful and polite, and not to be disrespectful. And I always had that feeling that there's plenty of times I've wanted to like maybe say something to someone, or as a girl growing up, and it's like, no, you're taught to respect your elders, respect
Right.
authority,
Yeah.
and so it's just an interesting,
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah, making children hug someone
Yeah.
when they leave. If the child does not want to hug that person, there is a reason, right? And there should be
They don't have that feeling of,
Absolutely.
yeah.
I have a friend who, two girls, and they had a friend who I was just like, there's just something about this guy. And so I said, girls, you need to think about this, and they're like, yeah, he gives us a weird feeling, right? And so the family talked, and there was no more having that guy over to the house. It's just as simple as that. It's just about talking about it with them, to listen to your body, to listen to that feeling you get.
And to not be afraid, and to
Yeah.
show your babies that. So
Yeah.
like, I think part of the silver lining of growing up with somebody who was scary, and like the only fist fight I've ever been in was with my daddy. So the silver lining of that though is I'm not afraid of anybody.
Yeah.
And so if, some guy was out and I had my babies and they were little and they're trying to like touch their hair, pretend they're being friendly, or I'm going to buy you a cookie. And I had no problem saying, no, you're not.
Yeah.
And being firm about it. And then you get called the B word.
Oh, yeah.
So don't be afraid of that, because when they react that way, that tells you, oh, they're just mad because I was right.
Yeah, it's a badge of honor, that B word.
Right? And they're
Yeah.
just mad that I was right, that they were up to something. And so just don't be afraid of that. And again, teach your my babies are so polite. You've met them. But they knew they had blanket permission at all times. Like, it's not rude, it's not bad. No matter who it is, if he makes you feel bad, you run away and it's okay. Never will you be in trouble for that. So
Right.
that's the other thing too, I think, with babies. There has to be ongoing communication all the time about everything. Like, if you don't talk to your babies about their day at school or their lives in general, they're not going to come to you if something's happening. So there has to be this open communication about everything under the stars, for them to be comfortable coming to you if there has been
And
sexual
knowing
abuse.
nothing's off limits.
That's right.
Having that conversation. You can
Yeah.
tell me absolutely anything in
That's
the
right.
world, and it will
Right.
not change how
Yeah.
much I love you.
Yeah.
That's right. AFNMW. That's
Yeah.
our acronym. I used to tell my babies all the time, always and forever, no matter what. That's how much I love them. And my daughter made me a ring that says it.
Oh,
And
my
we still
gosh.
text. Now we text it because they're big. But AFNMW, yeah, no matter what. And so as long as your babies know that, like, no matter, there's nothing you can tell me that's going to make me love you less. And there's nothing you can tell me that we can't overcome. Everything's overcomable.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. You guys always make me cry.
Oh.
I mean, whether it was the last show or the Evenings of Hope, the wonderful,
Yeah.
I'm like, oh my gosh, it's just because it's so sweet, and just how much love that you guys have for what you've done and your families. It's awesome, and imparting such knowledge and things that people can actually use, and talking about things that not everybody wants to talk about, and yeah, just being in the for so long.
I just think it's wonderful that you're allowing us to
Yes.
talk about
Oh my
it.
gosh.
Yes.
Because, as you've heard, I mean, that's rare, so
Yeah. Thank you for being
too.
brave
Yes.
to talk about it, and
Yes.
because there will be some listeners who are going to be like, oh, and they're going to fast forward.
Oh yeah.
Because they do this. I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it.
Yeah.
So thank you for being brave enough to let us talk about it more than once.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh.
We're so thankful.
Well, and I mean, just think about if one person heard this, or
That's
one
right.
person would be like, you know what,
Absolutely.
that person, maybe it's not too late. Maybe it's someone that they're talking
That's
to,
right.
and like I do get that feeling, but
That's-
I just think I'm overthinking it,
That's right.
Right.
right?
Nope.
And so if that just to go with your instinct,
Mm-hmm.
and your instinct is so powerful.
Oh, yeah.
and it was God given.
That's
for
right.
sure.
And
it's
with
there for a
everybody,
reason.
for some reason, when you said that, it made me think this, and I feel like I have to say it out loud. Even like young girls in like college or at school, like when they're walking, like I used to do this with my babies. I still do. Like, I just would have a feeling and be like, we can't go down that way, and walk the other way. Like, don't ever worry about if that's silly or you're going to be late, or if you have this feeling you shouldn't walk down that sidewalk, don't walk down that
Yeah.
sidewalk. Don't worry about being late to class. Don't worry about what someone thinks of you. Like, go the other way. Trust your instincts always, because they're there for a reason, and I believe they're God sent, and they're trying to keep you safe.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, so what's next?
Oh, lots of things. So I'm still the chair of ACFAN, which oversees all the advocacy centers in
Okay, I
Arizona.
don't think I knew that.
Yeah, so advocacy centers are one-stop shops for victims of violence in Arizona. So my foot's still in the world, so I'm still part of that. I'm considering joining the group that's running the Gilbert Advocacy Center Foundation. I got invited to apply to be part of that. So my foot's still in that world. I'm writing 3 books. I'm still in the middle of those.
Oh my
I'm
gosh.
spending a ton of time in my daughter's 3rd grade classroom with her students, and that's so fun. And just, being so present with my family and friends I haven't seen in a long time. Like my lunch calendar is through to May now because
Oh
I'm
my
having
gosh.
breakfast or lunch with people that I just haven't had time to because
Yeah.
if a victim called, I would be with the victim instead. And I just flew to Miami to see one of my best friends.
Oh my gosh.
I had never met her children because they're 10 and 12, which is Winged Hope time. And so I just never got out there. And so, yeah, just living life and still having so much opportunity to serve and still having so much opportunity to be there when people need us to be there. I got invited to help co-host a podcast, so I might do that. I don't know.
Awesome.
If I
Yay.
do, I'll come to you for wisdom. Yeah, I don't. It's so fun. What a beautiful gift and blessing that I don't have to do anything next, and that I get to just be like, "What do I want to do now?"
Yeah.
Oh, we started an Airbnb just today. We have our first person living in one and
Oh, nice.
renting one. Yeah. So, yeah. What a gift. Yeah.
Yeah.
I can't sit still. So, yeah. All the things. That's what's next for me.
Oh my gosh, that's so awesome.
Yeah.
What about you, Joyce?
So my son yesterday said, "Man, I don't know that I ever want to retire because you're busier than I am."
Right? I've heard that happens.
But serving is definitely still in my heart,
Yeah.
and so I still volunteer with the Gilbert Police Department.
Okay.
I'm considering changing. I am right now on call for crisis response, and so I am considering maybe dropping that because that is, again, being on call for
So is that
so many hours.
24/7 or-
No, you sign up for shifts.
Okay.
But you have to be available. So trying to kind of open that up. I answer phones at the church, and I thought that was going to be really wonderful, and God instead has placed people calling when I'm there that need help. And so it's kind of continued, but again, it's a very short span, and I leave and I don't walk with those people the whole time. I don't need to carry it with me. We have 9 grandkids. We have a great granddaughter, and so Mondays are Mondays with Walker, his 3-year-old grandson. So the biggest difference I think I see is my husband. I really did not realize how much, when we would have a case, and they're really hard ones. Especially we lost one victim that just I still bothers me, but I pray for her every day. But I didn't realize that I was carrying all that so long, and so the silence he would give me, I really didn't realize. He's so much lighter. I'm so much lighter.
Oh, yeah.
It's just been wonderful for our marriage of 30 years. So
Yeah.
big difference.
I concur. I feel like I'm paying a lot more attention to my husband than I
Yeah.
did.
Yeah.
Because again, if a case
Exhausted.
came in,
Well, you're exhausted.
and
You've
also
gotta be
there were a
exhausted.
lot of days, and he could tell where I was like, "Oh, I hate all men today."
Exactly.
I can't even.
Yes.
Yeah,
Think
and
about
so
that.
that's
Yes.
not terribly healthy for a marriage.
Probably not.
So yeah, but I should say I am not doing any direct victim services anymore. I mean, for now, I want to say never because I didn't want to do it the first time, and God's like, "Oh
Yeah, you are. It's like
yeah,
Jonah.
so
Jonah.
then 13 years later. So, but for now, as long as God will let me, I'm not going to do direct victim services just to heal a little bit because it tortured my soul. Praise God for my bad memory, but there are some that will live in there forever, and they are things
Yeah.
you can't even imagine, worse than the worst horror movie you've ever seen, and they were happening to children. And so, yeah, we, very glass half full, Joyce and I both, and so we focused on
Yeah.
what was good and we focused on what was right, but there were just some that knocked you in your teeth. And so,
Yeah.
I'm just so happy for a season of not doing that and not carrying that
Yeah.
literally every day because it took a toll. I've lost 10 pounds, by the way, since we stopped. And I think that's just stress.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sure.
And I did do a blood test during Winged Hope times, and my cortisol levels were literally off the chart.
Oh, yeah.
Like not even in the range of high, off the chart. So, yeah, it's good for our bodies. It's good for
Yeah.
our souls. It's
Yeah.
good for our marriages. It's good for our babies grown or
Yeah.
not. I can't wait to be a grandma. I hope that's coming for me soon. And I would love to be called grandma. Everyone's like, I don't want. Oh, you can call me grandma. I want
That's
that
what
name.
I am.
That'd be
just
awesome.
Grandma. That's what I get
love
asked.
that.
What are
Yeah.
you? I'm like,
Yeah.
grandma.
I would
Yeah.
love that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, when you think about them, they might make up their own name.
Yeah. Yeah.
They
yeah.
do. They do.
Yeah. Like
Shasha.
Shasha.
Exactly. Start with grandma and see where it leads.
Yeah,
But
I love it.
Such an honor. It's oh my gosh,
Yeah.
such an honor to be a grandma.
Oh,
I
it
can't
really
wait.
is.
Yeah,
I can't
Yeah.
wait.
I'm sure you're. Yeah. I'm
Which
sure
is
you're
going to
not-
be
Yeah.
amazing.
Until then, I get to enjoy her third grade class. I'm
Yeah.
actually going there tomorrow. I do art masterpiece with them.
Oh,
And
I remember. I
remember
love
that?
Art Masterpiece.
And I did that with them in the same
Oh
school.
my
Like I'm still in
gosh.
the same closet getting my supplies. Yeah, it's so fun. So yeah, I just feel like overwhelmed with blessings and
Yeah.
feel like I just have so much, and it's such a gift from God, and I'm thankful for everything. I'm thankful that I listened to him even on those days when I wanted to stop a long time ago. And I'm also thankful for Chelsea, we should say that, our board president, who had the courage to be like, I can't carry this anymore. And she didn't even do direct victim services, but it was just torturing her soul too. And she was having physical ailments from it. I mean, that ACEs, I mean, stress takes a real toll on your body, and carrying all that trauma, vicarious trauma is a very real thing. And I can't remember the stat exactly, but I was just saying it when I was doing a training for some police officers, and the average person has like, oh, I did say it at Evening of Hope, they have like 3 truly traumatic events in
Oh,
their
yeah.
lifetime, right? And we have what, 900, I think it was. So it's not healthy.
No.
And so, and in the police department too, they give you a timed assignment. So like you can't be in child sex crimes or internet crimes for a certain number of years, and then they move you. And then if you want to move back, you can. But like they know the toll it takes on your soul, and yeah, it took a toll these 13 years, but yeah.
Well, and I mean, just as much as you accomplished in that time, and then it's someone else's turn, right, to help with
That's
direct
right.
victims. It's
That's
someone
right.
else's turn for
Trusting
a
in
limited
others.
time. Yep.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yes.
And we always thought that too when there were cases where we couldn't do something. We always thought, well, God must just have somebody else that really needs to step in and have this role. And the healing that all of this work did for us, someone else needs that.
Well, that's true.
Yeah.
Right, because
Absolutely.
you did, like you were saying, you did benefit because it gave you purpose. and
Absolutely.
for everything that you both have gone through.
Yeah.
So,
Someone else needs that now.
well, thank you guys so much
Oh,
for
thank
so
you.
good to chat with you again.
Me
and
too.
just kind of think about all the things that you guys have done and how many lives you've changed is unbelievable. So thank you for everything you've done in the community. And like you said, if we can rewind,
Yeah.
then you're making the whole community better.
I would
Yeah,
love that. I would
absolutely.
love that. All glory to God, though, truly,
Yeah,
because
amen.
again, I said I didn't want to do it.
That's why I thought of Jonah. Like, no, you are going.
Yeah, and I was
yes,
like,
you are going.
"Whoa," kicking and screaming. Yeah,
Yeah, for sure.
So
pretty
that's why I
much.
say like I don't want to
Yeah.
next season, but
You've learned your lesson.
yeah, I will be obedient.
Oh, my gosh. Awesome. Thanks, you guys,
Thank
so
you
much.
so
Thank
much.
you.
Okay.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye. Ooh. You got it?
Yeah, all I did record. I'm gonna joke around.
I know, exactly. You're fired for that. Oh my gosh, thank you guys for coming back.
having us.
I just
Really,
thought
truly.
about
It's so wonderful to see
It'd be
you.
so great to have a recap after.
Oh, I'm so
now
glad.
that you are kind of closing
Truly.
shop,
Thank
I
you
guess.
for being
but
willing to talk about it. It's
So
Yeah.
important.
it's so important, and yeah, not everybody wants to. And
that's and I think I might have been shared with you last time or whatever. Did I tell you? I'm sure I did. It's been 6 years, so long, But no, was it 5-ish? But anyway, no. How many years?
yeah, 4.5.
Thank you. but about my niece or my
Oh,
step
you
niece.
did.
Oh, yes,
remember that?
yes.
Oh my gosh, I don't know how she's because we've since had a falling out with my brother, but oh my gosh, and like I just think about that all the time. I mean, Mike was like, wait, like it was her. So my sister-in-law's mom and was in a relationship with a much younger guy. Much younger, and so it's kind of like, well, that's odd, but whatever,
Yeah.
But they, it just didn't look right, but it's fine. And then they were living together, and my brother, they're all living under the same house, and Mike would say, he's like, do you ever see like because she was, I guess, probably maybe 10 when he had moved in or whatnot, and like Mike would say, like, do you ever notice like something doesn't seem right with him?
Listening to your gut.
Oh,
Andy and Maddie. remember?
oh, yeah, I just called.
I'm like,
Yeah.
but and it was,
Everybody's all okay with it. I'm like, what the
Yeah.
hell's this guy doing?
well, he
Yeah.
just was very touchy feely with
Oh,
her, and it
yeah.
was just like, but great guy, like